keynote speaker, Professor Zacharys Anga Gundu.
Please sit down. You know, the people introducing, sometimes they can cause a lot of confusion and damage. I just hope I will not disappoint all of you with my confusion and what I'm going to say. I'm privileged to stand before you, and I thank all of you, distinguished people. I thank the bishop. Our small parts, my small path has crossed his big path, but I think he just forgot. When I was with Intergender in Jos, we met a couple of times. We thank Hajia, Emmanuel, and Major, and all of you. I really thank you. I'm going to share some slides with you, and I'm hoping that the organizers would share these slides with you, because I'm going to speak to them, and when you have them, I will urge you to look very closely at them, each and every one of them, and think through the messages which these slides may have for you. But before we start, I want to say a few things that I want all of you to get out here with. Even if you don't look at the slides, even if you don't want to look at them. The first thing I want to say is that even though all of us may be different, and we are different, some of us are challenged by height, as the bishop said. Some people like Dukwa are giants, they are tall. Some of us are ugly, some of you are very beautiful people. Some are big, some are small. So we are different, but we are not separate from each other. We are different, but we are not separate from each other. Because we are not separate from each other, what happens to me would affect you. What happens to you will affect me, no matter how you look at it. And for those of you who have studied even elementary biology, you will know that all living things depend on each other. All living things, without exception, depend on each other. The plants you see, by the time you cut all of them on earth, all of us will die. Because the oxygen we use to breathe comes from plants through the process of photosynthesis. So we just have to understand that all of us are the same. The second thing I want us to understand very, very clearly, and if the organizers knew, they would have just stopped at the level the bishop spoke, because we are just going to repeat some of the things he said so eloquently. What we know as humanity My discipline is archaeology, so just pardon me if I keep on trying to give you some information that comes from archaeology. What we know as humanity is actually traceable to the cognitive revolution about 70,000 years ago. That is when human beings could think, could communicate in the type of language we are speaking here, and could create things. The cognitive revolution was heightened by the time human beings learned how to produce food. Prior to this, we were just hunters and gatherers. And during hunting and gathering, there was no reason to amass a lot of food, to amass surplus. No person lived on the surplus of others. Every person had to find a way of contributing to the tea by gathering food, by scavenging for food. But when food production started, other human beings attempted a very, very creative thing. And what they attempted is actually the source of the inequalities we have today. They decided that they will not produce food, but they will live on the surplus. These are the politicians. These are the military people, paramilitary people. These are the, and I'm sorry to refer to the bishop like this, it may sound harsh, but these are also the religious entrepreneurs. The people who decided, for whatever reasons, to stand in the gap between other human beings who were producing food and God. They are also philosophers, educated people, the elites, the bureaucracy, who for whatever reasons decided that other people should be producing food. They will be monitoring who was paying taxes with the food and who could go and do jobs for the king. This group of dependents conspired, and they also created, and I'm sorry because I'm going to be controversial, but the bishop doesn't fear controversy. They created gods. They created gods. And then, because they wanted every other single person on earth to be organized in a way that will benefit only them, they stood in the gap between the other people who were producing food and the gods. And they blamed every single thing which they did wrong on the gods, and exonerated themselves and got every single one of us to be blaming the God person for everything we have. That is why for most people, when they see problems, they are talking about prayer, they are talking about fasting. And the thing is not working, but they are still talking about prayer, they are still talking about fasting. I wish it were possible to try to discuss this in detail so that we can begin to see what has really happened when the rain started beating us. All these issues about social justice, they are rooted in that. The initial codes, and those who have studied the history of religion would know that even before the Ten Commandments, there were other codes by Hammurabi, Unamu, which attempted to regulate people's thinking and which blamed virtually every single thing on others except the leaders and those who had conspired. Ladies and gentlemen, even if you don't get out of this place with anything, think about this and think about the fact that the key to the inequalities we see, the key to some of the challenges we have, lies in the fact that we have decided that other people should think for us. I will say this again. As long as we, Nigerians and Africans, as long as you and I decide that other people should think for us, they will shortchange us. And coming from somebody who is in charge of running a university, sometimes I feel ashamed of myself that in the Nigerian school system, we are not teaching people and our students to think. We are scuttling thinking. In the home, we don't want our children to think. In the churches, I'm not Anglican, I'm NKC. NKC is the Deep Protestant Church. And I quarrel with them. I'm running a university which is their university. And sometimes people ask me, how did these people get you to come around this university? And I say that where is God's own making? The church scatters thinking. And as long as we don't think, it's not going to work. People think that, they have already thought for us. The Europeans, you were talking about the UK. The people decided that it must be order that would push them forward. It was a conscious thought process. In Nigeria, nothing seems to be working, and we are not thinking. But that is just thinking. Thinking is one of the keys. The other is imagination. If we ever allow people to imagine for us, it's not going to work for us. It's going to work for them. Because they will imagine how they will manipulate you. They will imagine how they will manipulate you and I. And then, it works for them, it doesn't work for us. And to God we have been manipulated in this country. To God we have been manipulated in Africa. To God we have been manipulated in our families. How else can we not value life? The bishop has talked of killings. on the plateau. It has happened in Benue, happens in Niger, it happens in Zamfara, it happens in the northeast, it's happening everywhere. And I'm sure all of you know, if you have been reading, there's a nexus between the violence in these places and mineral resources in these places. There is a nexus. The people who want to plunder these mineral resources go into the bush and into the rural areas. They manipulate every other person. While we are fighting and killing each other, they are taking these mineral resources outside this country, and we are not benefiting. And you and I are here fighting each other. The politicians, I don't know whether they are here, they also know how to manipulate us. They talk about religion, they talk about ethnicity, they talk about every other thing that can separate us. But it doesn't occur to us that if Dangote sits on the table with Michael Adenuga, if he sits on the table with Boa, if he sits on the table with Odetola, it is profits that they will be talking about. It is not religion they will be talking about. And once they are talking about profits, they can mess you and I up. But it is not just about imagination, it's about creativity. It's about creativity. Create. Our forefathers created the foods that fed us. Today, those of you who have children know that they discard and denigrate the foods which our forefathers ate. The medicines which our forefathers used, the herbs, to treat themselves, they discard and denigrate them. And they do it so ignorantly, to the extent that they don't know the white people are coming into the African forests and botanical gardens to get these herbs, take them back, turn them into drugs, bring them back. We're here talking about people who are witch doctors. And the basis of whatever medical practice our forefathers had was these herbs. Of course, you and I know that our people were also deeply religious, and they knew how to connect with the divine. But now we have discarded our traditional religious beliefs. I'm coming into conflict with the bishop now, and I'm aware of it. Truth of the matter is that every people know how to connect with the divine. Okay. Maybe another connection is slightly more effective than another. But there is no way you can throw away the original connection and take any other thing outside that original connection 100% and be useful to yourself. That's just the truth of the matter. There is no way. No person who wants to succeed survives that way. Even in the Bible, even in the Quran, there is allowance. By the time Christ came, there was allowance to accommodate the law and the prophets. By the time Christianity went to Europe, They brought in some other local ingredients and added to us. Now we are here in this country. And what we have is not working for us. What we have in Islam is also not working for us. I just hope they will not cut my head. Because if we really appreciate the fact that we are different and we are not separate, we will make allowance for people to worship the way they really would want to worship. We must make allowance for that. Because we are talking about a country that is as divided as Nigeria, which is rich in diversity. I want to say this, and I don't know, I've given you the slides, I have. I could go over them maybe in 5 minutes, but I want to say the last thing. This country is bleeding. Africa is bleeding. It is left for us to checkmate this bleeding. And if we don't do it today, it will be more difficult to do it tomorrow. Let me just give you an example. In the year about 2030 or so, Nigeria is going to be the 6th most populous country in the world. This is not a prophecy. This is something that is going to happen. So I'm not a religious person trying to prophesy. It's going to happen. Our population would be the 6th in the world in terms of countries. At that point in time, and even before that point in time, Muslims in this country will be about 65% of the total population of this country. Listen very well. I'm not frightening you. It's what is going to happen. This 65% of people, most of them are going to be young people like you and I. In the north of this country, it has the largest population of out of school children. Largest population. They are not going to school. But political Islam is rising in the world. And I think you know what political Islam is. Me, I know because I stayed in Zaria. I'm still a staff of Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria. If these people are not going to school, other people are going to manipulate them, and there will be chaos in this country. There will be chaos in this country. I'm not frightening you. I'm not prophesying. I'm only telling you what is going to happen. When that chaos comes, for those of you who are related to these rich people, tell them they will not be served. They will not be served. They will be as threatened as you and I. Their riches will be threatened as you and I. And we will be in trouble. Anyway, am I going to speak to the slides? No. This is okay. I will invite you to pick a copy of the slides. I have sent it to them. I'm sure you have emails. And because you have emails, they are going to send the slides to you. This country is bleeding. Our families are bleeding. Our religious communities are bleeding. Africa is bleeding. But in Africa, we also had transformational leaders. We did have them. That's the only way you can describe a Thomas Sankara. That's the only way you can describe Murtala Muhammad. That's the only way you can describe Patrice Lumumba. And even the one they killed in Tripoli, Libya, Gaddafi. Transformational leaderships are a threat in Africa to the world. Without exception, the West killed all of them. Without exception, the West killed all of them. So if you sit down here and think this country is going to be transformed without you being ready to shed your blood, you must be a joker.
You can do better, please. Thank you very much.